supposed to happen in Beverly Hills. A movie executive and his wife were brutally slain in their million-dollar mansion.
And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about what happened and wish that I could take that moment back.
The Menendez family seemed to have it all. A perfect family living the American dream. A beautiful home previously rented to superstars. A successful career in music and entertainment, bringing in the financial stability for the family. Yet one night, gunshots were heard that changed everything. Today's case might be one of the most well-known cases of the last century. In recent years, the case is getting newfound limelight thanks to the Gen Zs and TikTok. On August 20, 1989, Jose and Mary Kitty Menendez were fatally shot in their Beverly Hills home. Their sons, Lyle and Eric Menendez, were found guilty of the murders and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Besides O.J. Simpson's infamous white Bronco chase that was highly publicized on live TV, the case of Menendez brothers became one of the most talked about crime cases of last century, thanks to Court TV's extensive coverage. Born on May 6, 1944, Jose Menendez was a Cuban immigrant who fled to the United States during the Cuban Revolution. He later married beauty queen, Kitty Menendez. Their first son, Joseph Lyle Menendez, was born on January 10, 1968. 2 years later, on November 27, 1970, their second son, Eric Galen Menendez, was born. Around this time, Jose's career quickly rose through the ranks as a successful music executive, bringing the family much required wealth and financial stability. By the early 1980s, Jose was the head of RCA Records. To pursue a career in the movie business, Jose moved his family to 722 North Elm Drive, a Mediterranean-style mansion in the quaint neighborhood of Beverly Hills. This would later become the death house for both Jose and Kitty Menendez. Known to be a controlling and ambitious parent for his kids, Jose was a hard-charging father who would push his sons to exhausting practice routines in the hope of becoming national tennis players. The young Eric Menendez was told to practice almost every day. Their tennis coach, who later took to the stand in their trial, quoted, "He was one of the worst. I didn't want his interference. I told him he should let me do the coaching, and he should be the father. He said I was naive, and I was fired." The trainings paid off, and Eric was ranked 44th in the United States for 18 years old and below tennis players. The elder brother, Lyle Menendez, was a star tennis player in the making. Lyle attended Princeton University and was following his father's footsteps towards a career in business. Yet, behind closed doors, the two siblings had no way out besides fulfilling their immigrant father's American dreams. Very soon after moving to their new home, teething problems began to show. Eric got involved in some juvenile burglaries, while Lyle was suspended for a year from Princeton University for plagiarism. The cracks within the family were slowly beginning to show. On the fatal evening of August 20, 1989, while both their kids were away for a movie, Jose and Kitty settled for an evening of TV. At about 10 p.m., neighbors heard sounds of popping that sounded like firecrackers at the Menendez home.
What's the problem? What's the problem? I'm trying to kill my parents. Pardon me?
The murder scene was gruesome. It was reported that nearly 15 rounds were shot from 2 shotguns. Due to the brutality of the crime, initial investigations focused on mob-style slayings by business rivals, which were often executed in similar fashion. The brothers told the police they had been out for a night at the movies, but needed to come home as they had forgotten Eric's ID. Upon entering their Beverly Hills mansion, they discovered their parents' bodies and dialed 911. No gunshot residue tests were ordered for the Menendez brothers, as there were no indications that the brothers were the perpetrators. Following the months after their parents' slayings, strange behaviors were observed of both grieving brothers. Instead of mourning for the loss of their parents, an estimated $700,000 was spent within 6 months. Lyle bought a Rolex, a Porsche Carrera and a restaurant in Princeton in the hopes of running a business franchise, while Eric paid $50,000 for a personal tennis coach and opted for a Jeep Wrangler. As the Menendez murders investigations continued, investigators were pinning down the brothers as the most likely suspects due to the financial gains they stand to receive and the liberal way of money spending observed after their parents' slaying. Due to the earlier juvenile crimes that Eric committed, he was required to undergo psychiatric therapy. Eventually, he confessed his guilt to his psychologist, Jerome Oziel, on tape. To protect the client's privacy, the confessions were meant to be confidential. The tape session was overheard by Oziel's mistress, who later exposed the brothers' involvement to the police. On March 8, 1990, Lyle Menendez was arrested, and 3 days later, on March 11, Eric returned from Israel to turn himself in. He was arrested at the Los Angeles International Airport. The brothers' attorneys appealed to the judge's ruling that portions of the therapy sessions' recorded tapes were admissible as evidence. The battle for the tapes dragged on for over 2 years before the California Supreme Court intervened. On December 7, 1992, both boys were charged with murder separately. The trial began in 1993. It was one of the most highly anticipated broadcasting events on the then relatively new cable TV network, Court TV. The sensational coverage features the great American dream that was torn apart by two brothers' gruesome crime. As we now know, a turn of event eventually led the two young men to murder. Leslie Abramson, the defense attorney of Eric, argued that the brothers did what they did as self-defense.
Can you answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, it was you telling Lyle what?
My dad had been molesting me.
Growing up in the Menendez family was filled with violence and trauma hidden from the public. Both boys were sexually assaulted by their father at different ages. Their mother was an alcoholic, a broken wife who did not stop her husband's physical abuse of the boys. Andy Kano, the brother's cousin, revealed that Eric shared about the abuse to him when he was still a child. Another cousin, Diane Vandermolen, testified in court that she shared with Kitty about the molestations on Lyle by Jose, but was quickly dismissed by the beauty queen.
What else did he do to you?
He used objects.
What kind of objects?
A toothbrush and some sort of shaving utensil brush.
And did he try to anally penetrate you with something else?
He did.
And what was it?
He raped me.
On January 10, 1994, a deadlock was reached in Eric's case. 2 weeks later, Lyle, too, reached a deadlock. Mistrials were filed, and eventually, on July 2, 1996, the Menendez brothers were sentenced to life in prison without parole. Both brothers were sentenced to separate prisons, and on April 4, 2018, the brothers finally met again. Lyle was moved to Eric's same housing unit in the San Diego County, reuniting them for the first time in 22 years. In recent years, the Menendez brothers have found new attention and followings through an army of Gen Z defenders on TikTok. Videos were posted by supporters and believers that the brothers were fending for themselves. Accounts dedicated to freeing the convicted brothers have been created by the Gen Zs, who were not even born when the trial took place. According to Robert Rand, a longtime Menendez supporter, the brothers are aware of their newfound offenders. Although the siblings have exhausted all legal options, Robert claims that a letter written by Lyle to his cousin prior to the gruesome murder detailed Jose's abuse. The Menendez brothers may explore filing a writ of habeas corpus, giving them one last chance for another trial. Over the past decades, fresh regulations and legal rights to what was previously sensitive have emerged. Women who resorted to killing their abusive partners get a second chance. As celebrity criminal defense lawyer, Mark Geragos concluded of the Gen Z's Menendez defenders and guardians, times change. People start to recalibrate. The law moves, and I'm a big believer that movements can have an effect. So, what are your thoughts of today's case of the Menendez brothers? Do you think the murder was their way of getting out of the family abuse, or do you think there is no way for the parents to defend themselves, since both are brutally murdered? Please leave your comments, hit like and subscribe for more crime stories. Until next time, stay safe.